Hey everybody, we're so glad you're here. If it's your first time listening, welcome to our show. Please hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any of our future episodes. Today, we're going to be talking about my mom's recent trip, as well as some ways you can get started in hunting.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Mac Outdoors podcast, where a dynamic mother-daughter duo share their adventures, tips, and advice. I am Mia, and I'll be accompanied by the one and only daughter, Lea. It is time to get to outdoors, hunt, shoot, and spend time with family and friends. Let's get this show on the road.
Hey guys, welcome back to another week with Mia and Lea on the MAC Outdoors podcast. Last week, we talked about our SCI banquet, and that was happening this weekend, which was a huge success.
It was a huge success, and we are so tired because we put so much work into it. And Leah's skull auctioned really well. I am so proud of her, and are you pretty excited about how well it did also?
Yeah, I was very surprised. I was a little nervous that it might not go for as much as it should or how it was going to go, but I was really pleased with it and the people that got it, so that was pretty
pretty cool. And overall, the entire banquet was just a huge success. We had some speakers that came. They are lobbyists that go to the capitals in Denver and in Santa Fe in New Mexico, and they told us a little about all the bills that they're fighting this year and stuff like that. And then we, of course, went on to the fun of auctions and games and raffles and all that. And then before we knew it, it was over.
While me and a bunch of the other volunteers on the board were working so hard getting these donations in and all the small things, my mom over here went on a hunt in Florida.
Yeah, I was being a slacker, ran off to go hunting.
She planned it like that, you know.
No, actually, I'm a guest host for Remington Country Television, and I was called in at the last minute to go and fill a spot. So it is work, but it's a fun job to go and hunt. And so I headed down to Florida to hunt hogs.
And left me behind.
Left Lea to do all the hard work.
Yes. So about this hog hunt, it was in Florida. How many hogs did you end up harvesting?
We shot, I believe, 9 hogs total. And we were there hunting for 2 days, and we shot 9 hogs. And really, we saw a lot more, but it's hard to put a dent in that population. There's so many hogs down there that as many as you shoot, you feel like you just didn't make that much of a difference in the nuisance hogs. There's too many.
Right. How did you hunt the hogs?
So it was really cool. The first day, we had to get up and ready, eat breakfast before daylight, and then here comes this buggy, and they had told me about it, and our friend Terry Lancaster had mentioned it before too. She lives in Florida, but they said they were going to bring the buggy around, and here pulls up this huge buggy, and they call it a swamp buggy, and the tires are literally bigger than I am. The deck of this swamp buggy, like I could stand under it straight up, and there was still room between me and the floor of that buggy. So I thought that was really cool because we don't have anything like that up here in Colorado, nor have I seen that in New Mexico, but that was pretty neat. We hopped on the buggy and headed out to look for hogs, so that was an exciting start to the day.
That sounds like a sweet ride. And so you mentioned, I know when you're telling the stories when you got back, did you hunt with dogs or did you sit blinds? How did that work?
Okay, so as you know, you and I have hunted hogs before, and normally we just sit in blinds and you wait for the hogs to come by. So this was pretty cool because, as I said, we're in this buggy, and it's kind of like a mobile hunting blind, I suppose. We're not invisible, but you sure could cover country. But they also had dogs, and so they would send the dog, and a dog would run through the palmettos, which were like tunnels of caves in these palm leaf bush things. And the dogs would find a hog and they would bay it up. And so then we knew we had to get over there before the hog could attack the dog or hurt it. So that buggy, we would just drive over there as fast as we could over all kinds of obstacles. And the first time one of the dogs bayed a pig up, we jumped down, and I was carrying a Remington R1 10mm handgun, and we go into these tunnels of the palmettos, and there was a sow and then I don't know how many shotes, which are young pigs that aren't still nursing, but there was pigs running everywhere, and the dog was running, trying to keep the hog bayed up. And so there was a lot of action going on, and I never took a shot because there's too much going on and I couldn't get a good shot. So unfortunately that hog ran off, and later we ended up catching up to it again, and it got bayed up. And my partner from Remington Arms Company, he actually is the one who brought the firearms for us to hunt with. He actually got a shot on that pig and took it down with his, he was shooting a 300 Blackout, and that is a Bushmaster rifle. And his rifle was really cool because it had a suppressor on the end. And this year, when we went to SHOT Show, as you know, there were suppressors everywhere. Mm-hmm. And that's because of the Hearing Protection Act has been reintroduced because of our new president. And so suppressors are really a big thing. But that was really cool because he had the 300 Blackout, and I had an R25 that was chambered in 308. And so I constantly had to keep putting my muffs on, and it was about 90 degrees down there. Oh, darn, right?
Yeah, bummer.
I left you guys here in the cold, and I headed down there where it was so warm. But I had to keep putting my hearing protection on because I was shooting a rifle that wasn't suppressed. So I guess that's an instance where a lot of people say suppressors aren't necessary and they serve no purpose. But really, that was a great thing to have because the dogs, you know, it didn't hurt their ears and it didn't hurt other people's ears around us. He had a good shot on that hog with that 300 Blackout.
So you went hog hunting, and I know that's a very controversial topic for some people. Why do we hunt hogs? I know in Texas there's a high population of them, but I never knew there were that many in Florida.
Yeah, actually, the hog population's primarily in the southern states in the U.S., and Texas has the highest number of nuisance hogs, followed by Florida and California, which I was really surprised that California had that many because you don't hear a lot about hogs in California. But those three states are the highest population of hogs. And the interesting thing is, I mentioned the female and some other young pigs around her. Well, the thing about wild hogs is they breed. There's always this saying, like, things breed like rabbits, and they say that because rabbits multiply so quickly. Well, they should say that something breeds like hogs because hogs will have litters of up to 12 babies, and those babies can reproduce. They start breeding when they're about 3 months old. They can start having other babies. So they really just multiply so quickly. And so that's why I'm saying in our hunt, we shot 9 hogs, but really that's not even maybe a whole litter of hogs. And, you know, if there was another sow that had any babies that are still nursing, pretty soon, however many, if she had 6 babies even, then all of a sudden each of those 6 has another 6 to 12 babies, and you just have hogs everywhere.
So that is a big factor, is population growth. And I know partly, like all of us hunt, it's also to keep numbers relatively controlled. So that is a huge point. But also, they're super destructive. I know that they don't only tear up fields and ground, but they also will take out animals. I have heard stories of baby deer and such animals like that. They just plow them over if they're just being born, you know, and that is a huge thing too. I also did some research, and these are statistics from Texas, but it said there's 2.6 million to 3.4 million hogs in Texas alone, which is mind-blowing to me.
That's a lot of hogs.
And that's only Texas, I can't imagine. I know we hunted in Louisiana for hogs, Florida, have friends that hunt in California. It just seems...
Yeah, and your first hogs you hunted in Alabama. That was Alabama. And then Oklahoma. So there's a hog
everywhere. But one of the big things, too, is they cause over $400 million in property damage.
Yeah, and that was one thing. That rancher there where we were at was actually a cattle ranch. They raise beef. And they have these like blockades so that their calves can get into the corn feeders. And that way they have nutrition. But what happens is the hogs can also fit in there since they're smaller than a calf. And they get into those corn feeders and they root around and they dig that corn and it goes on the ground. And then it sours and then the cows don't eat it. So basically that rancher is out that money of the feed that he's trying to feed his calves.
Yeah, that's crazy for sure. And like you were saying, you guys only got 9 out of however hundreds you saw on your trip. And another statistic I found was hunters on average get about 750,000 hogs a year.
Whoa.
But there's no sign of decline as there are 3.4 million.
Wow.
It's mind-blowing facts for me.
And that's incredible numbers because you think of that number of hogs versus whatever the numbers of elk and deer are. And maybe for another episode we can talk about elk and deer populations and also, you know, we talked about SCI and conservation organizations, but what we should look up is Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation and how the herds of deer have been increasing and elk have been increasing.
Right.
But they don't breed like pigs do. I mean, a deer maybe will have twins, sometimes on rare occasion triplets, but that's not very common.
Yeah. I find it really amazing how hogs can reproduce fast and the mind-blowing numbers of them. It's definitely crazy to see.
Yeah, it is crazy. And one thing that I noticed at this ranch, we were at Southeast Timber Creek Outfitters in Florida. So they're in southern Florida. It's beautiful. It's like tropical paradise there. It was just gorgeous. But I think it'd be a great way if you're looking to get kids into hunting or even an adult, a new hunter, if you're trying to get them started in hunting hogs would be a great way because you can hunt from stands like we did when Leah was little. That was not her first hunt, but it was an early hunt when you were younger. It's a great way to get started because there are a good number of them. Your chances of finding them when you're on a hog hunt is pretty good. It's definitely opportunity, and it's a great place to get started.
And it's also good, too, with hogs. You can use any method of take.
True.
As well.
True. Any method of take. And that's something, talking about getting youngsters into it, is, you know, Ben had that 300 blackout with the suppressor on it. And that's something where I know some kids, like when you first started hunting with, you know, your first turkey hunt and you had the shotgun, and there's always that intimidation factor of recoil, where with that suppressed gun, he was able to shoot it. The recoil is reduced, the noise is reduced, and it just made a lot more confidence in his shooting. And I think that'd be great for a new hunter to get started out.
Definitely. So what would be your tip for any hog hunters out there or anyone who wants to go hog hunting?
Oh, a loaded question. My tip for somebody who wants to go hog hunting would be find some property. I think it's probably easiest in those southern states. It seems like there's a lot of private land. So you kind of need to talk to landowners. And anybody who's taken hunter's education should know that you want to ask permission before you go on anybody's property. But a lot of these ranchers would grant permission because of how the hogs are destroying their property, and it's basically income loss for them. So that's one thing, is you can talk to landowners and ask them if you can hunt their place. But then you can also look to outfitters, just like this location we went, and see how much it might cost. And see if they have a swamp buggy to cruise you around and some good hunting dogs. That was really cool to hunt behind a different type of dog. We hunted behind a black and tan cur and a blackmouth cur were the two types of dogs that we hunted with. And as you guys know, you had heard in one of the earlier episodes about my lion hunt. Well, we in Colorado hunt mountain lions with hounds. And it's a little different because our hounds chase them and they run up the tree, and then we get there and you get the animal, where most of the time the mountain lions aren't gonna turn back and attack the hounds because they run up the tree and they just stay up there. And with these hogs, these hounds, they were so just courageous and brave. They would run into these holes, and the hogs have these huge tusks that just cut. And actually, one or two of the dogs did get cut. On the second day, I shot a pretty good-sized boar, and he had some good cutters on him, and 2 dogs were on him. And he was in such thick brush, we couldn't get to him, and the dogs just stayed at it, and you could hear the hogs snorting and snarling, and the dogs growling and barking, and then you could hear an ipe when a tusk would get a cut on him, and it was just, you really wanted to get there to save the dogs so that they wouldn't get injured, so you had to be quick. But it's interesting to watch them work because they, just like a bird hunting dog, when they're ready to go, you could just see them like they're there to work and do a job. So that was really cool. If you ever get a chance to hunt hogs behind the dogs, it's really fun, and I highly recommend it.
What was it like being on the ground with the hog? I know we hunted from stands, and, you see them come into the feeder or whatever, but being on the ground has to be a whole new perspective.
Being on the ground definitely was, and it was an adrenaline rush. As you know, I love hunting bears on the ground. I love hunting with a handgun. I've never been attacked by a bear or anything, but thank God. But I have, been between a sow and her cub, and you just kind of get out of there. Well, this was a little different because the palmettos are pretty stiff and rough. They're hard to get through. They're sharp themselves. But you've got so much action going on in the brush. I mean, when I've been bear hunting with my handgun, it's just me and it's quiet, and, it's a little less action going on. So it just being on the ground with the hogs, you didn't know which way that hog was going to go. And as I said, like, one of the dogs got cut, and that was one thing, but what if the hog turned my way and was going to cut me? And obviously I did have a handgun. I could shoot the hog, but it definitely, another big thing that I noticed is I'm always a stickler for safety, as you know, and a lot of people are like, oh, like, I'm overboard safe, and, always harping on finger off the trigger and safety's on and all that, right? So I definitely put all that to use there, because you definitely had to know where your muzzle was pointed, know that your gun was safe and everything, and all the skills that I have practiced over the years were put to use there. And it was this really neat, like, in the end, I was like, wow, like, I've practiced this, and there's a reason why. And actually, even if a person was attacking me, I know that I could draw quick enough to take care of business if I had to, So I guess that's another reason to hunt hogs on the ground. You could do some real life quick draw methods and so forth.
Well, it sounds like that hunt was a lot of fun, and I'm pretty sad I missed out.
I told the outfitter I really want to take you and Hank down there because it just was an experience that is really memorable, and I think it'd be great for the whole family. And actually, that lodge is run by a family. It's a husband and wife and their 2 teenage children who are, the daughter's close to your age, and then a son that's close to our friend Cortland's age. So I think it'd be fun to have our families go and hang out there and visit with them. I think you guys would have a blast hunting from that swamp buggy, because some hogs, we were on the ground with them, but one morning it was super foggy and we were headed across the open fields, and I used the R25, that 308 rifle, and shot some on the run after we got the buggy stopped and ready to go. And so that was pretty exciting too, to be able to get them from the buggy like that. That was pretty cool.
I can't wait for that trip out to Florida someday, hopefully soon. But that hunt does sound like a lot of fun, and I'm sure, or I know I would love it, and I'm sure our friend Cortland would have a blast out there. So hopefully we can make the trip down there soon so we have more stories to tell you guys. But that is all we have for this week.
So thanks for tuning in. We hope that you will like every episode that we have, and we hope that you'll subscribe so you can hear future episodes. Please stop by iTunes and give us a review. It sure helps our ratings and helps us be found in search engines more quickly. And on that note, see you next week.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. Catch us next week. And I did some research, and these are statistics. What was I even trying to say?